There's a windmill on top of it when I was a kid. Oh,
Okay, we're going live in about 30 seconds.
Hey,
Okay.
Bob or Paul, I'm pulling 5 and 6 from consent, please.
Okay,
Okay,
that's good, because I was gonna pull 6 too about the Mr. Lamont's trees.
Oh, are you going to speak on his behalf?
Yeah, I just,
And I won't bother.
no, that's
I was just
fine.
going
You
to
go,
say what,
no,
no, I was just going to say what they said. I don't know the man. I would rather you speak of him.
okay,
I thought it was lovely what they put in the application. Okay.
okay, we're all set. We're gonna go live. Okay, welcome back, everybody.
okay, motion to reconvene.
Second,
Motion second to reconvene. All in favor? Aye.
Aye,
aye.
Item number 2, public forum. Pursuant to Rule 25 of the Rules of the Council, citizens may address the town on one subject only. Said subject is substantive town business, neither discussed during the regular meeting nor related to personnel or job performance. Citizens may speak for no longer than 5 minutes and must either drop off a public participation form request at the town hall or email to either or both Wendy Marshall or Karen Clancy at least 30 minutes prior to the start of the meeting. All items discussed during this session will not be voted upon. The entire session will last no longer than 15 minutes. We have 3 people that want to speak, and the first one is our Preventive Coalition Coordinator, Lori Veterosi. Lori?
Can you hear me?
Okay,
yes,
go right ahead, Lori.
Great. Good evening, everybody.
Good
So
evening, Lori.
I am here tonight to speak to you about Middletown Wellness Month. Middletown Wellness Month kicked off today. This is one of our largest outreach events of the year. We are really excited about it. It dovetails with the Heron Project's Wellness Week, which is also this week. Ours, however, extends throughout the month. I put a couple of flyers in your packet. The purple one looks like this. I don't know if you can see. Just summarizes the 3 main events. The spotlight event for the month is the Wellness Walk. There are 7 different challenges. The challenges are aligned with each of our schools. Gaudet, the elementary schools, All Saints Academy is participating with us. And then there's a community walk that is designed for the adults in the community over 18. And the wellness walk is based on duration, how long, how many hours. You can walk during the month of March, and there will be prizes awarded on April 5th. Excuse me, the next major event of the month are the wellness and fitness classes. We are partnering with the YMCA on this. The YMCA has been really nice. They have opened up all of their wellness and fitness classes to us for all Middletown youth, Middletown adults, families. All of those classes, participation in all of those classes are free. All one does is just go to the WISE group schedule page, live stream page, I should say. They can see the schedule there, and then they register for that online virtual class. Classes such as Zumba, kickboxing, various different kinds of yoga, etc., are offered to the community. And then lastly, there again, we are partnering with the Y on this event. Next weekend on Saturday, there is a Wellness Month Field Day. There are 2 sessions. It is designed, the first session is designed for the younger youth, younger children, I should say, ages 5 to 10. And then the second latter morning into early evening class is designed for youth ages 11 to 15. And basically, these are fun, interactive team building activities that the Y instructors, excuse me, will be facilitating, and they are designed to build communication, cooperation, trust, and leadership. Then in addition to that, you have probably seen that we're purpling up with lights and bows and lawn signs and banners all around town. I've actually gotten a couple of calls this year, people saying, what is all that purple about? So I think it's really catching on. And then lastly, there are school-based activities. The students are involved with doing things. I'll give you a quick, for example, up at the high school, our Islanders committed youth have painted a wellness tree on the cafeteria windows. They are handing out leave templates for all of the students to write how they're staying healthy and connected and positive during the course of this COVID pandemic. And then they're putting them up on the tree, and there are prizes and all kinds of other activities as well. So overview, does anybody have any questions on any of those activities? Please, I'll send them out digitally to you as well so that you can pass them to family and friends and neighbors. I would welcome you sharing the information around town.
Thank you, as always, Laura. You do a great job, you and your team.
Thank you so much. All right, thanks.
Good night, Lori.
Good night.
Thanks, Lori.
Okay, Lawrence Frank. Lawrence Frank.
Can you hear me?
We can, Lawrence, name and address, please.
Lawrence Frank, 8 O'Donnell Road, Middletown. January 17th, 1925. The business of the American people is business. So said President Calvin Coolidge, praised by advocates of smaller government and laissez-faire economics. His economic prescription did not end well. In October 1929, just several months after he left office, Black Thursday heralded the arrival of the Great Depression. Fast forward to February 25th, 2021. In a discussion regarding the issue of short-term rentals in Middletown, Robert Sylvia, Middletown's council president, said, "People that own property have a right to make money. They have every right in the world to make money." Also speaking was Chris Souza, a member of the Middletown Zoning Board. Referring to property tax collections in Middletown, he asked, "Is the town using any of the short-term rental property tax collections to nourish this job-creating business?" Souza continued, "And yes, this is a business, and I firmly believe that anyone who owns rental property, whether it is year-round or short-term, they're operating a business. It's an investment. You're not trying to lose money." Where to begin? This so-called job-creating business provides employment for only several months during the summer. Local businesses are unable to rely on year-round residents as customers. The vacation houses are vacant. Layoffs, seasonal closings do little to advance the economic interests of Middletown. And yet individuals like Mr. Souza, who owns multiple properties in Middletown, is happy to adopt Mr. Sylvia's every right in the world to make money creed. The idea that the town should use town money, to use Mr. Souza's word, to nourish the short-term rental business is nonsense. In what universe would it be okay for Middletown to subsidize a rental that, based on a recent listing, charges $9,000 a week? Left up to Sylvia and Souza, the social fabric of Middletown, already frayed, would be ripped apart. Increases in housing values not only drives year-round residents out of their homes, but brings in real estate investor who, as Souza says, are not trying to lose money. Instead of year-round residents who contribute to the town and state economy, we have part-time visitors who offer just short-term benefit to local businesses. Instead of year-round residents with families, we have a rapidly declining school population with negative impacts on learning at all levels. Instead of encouraging businesses to locate here, we have housing costs that make it unattractive for companies to pay workers enough to even afford modest homes. And without year-round residents, we have fewer and fewer individuals truly invested in the welfare of Middletown. Some council members often refer to their business experience during council discussions. This is telling. Government is not a business. It represents a social compact between elected officials and the people they represent. That compact requires that actions taken by government benefit all. For too many years, the Middletown Town Council has operated as if it were a business where the special interests are accommodated and the needs of the residents are ignored. The town suffers when that social compact is broken. Much like President Coolidge, this focus on business success creates a blind spot when it comes to the damage that has been done. There is a price to pay. Some of it is already here. The only question is if and when it will stop. When will the town council recognize that an economy that promotes the loss of year-round residents will disenfranchise our families from having the life that was promised to them? Thank you.
Bird or Dyer Jones? Bird or Dyer Jones?
Can you hear me?
We can. Name and address.
Oh, good. You've all read the letter that I assume you've all read the letter I sent to you, but I would like to read it as part of the public record. And I would also like
Name and
to,
address, please.
306 Tuckerman Avenue, Middletown,
Your name?
Bird Jones.
Thank you.
And I would like to preface my remarks by thanking Councilman Welch, Councilman Toronto, and Councilwoman Flynn for responding to my letter. And I've responded to them privately, and am willing to sit down with anyone who is interested in continuing the conversation. So, to the members of the Middletown Town Council, from a weary taxpayer, February 24th, 2021. RE, the Groundhog Day of local governance. Dear Council President Sylvia and members of the Middletown Town Council. I'm writing to you to, of course, thank you for your service, but to also ask of you to think about doing business differently. Specifically, I'm calling on you to take the public input and the personal experience of Middletown residents as seriously as the spreadsheets that seem to hold your attention in your discussions of taxes and assessment. I'm also asking you to be more mindful of and honor the comprehensive plan as a meaningful document to which you must hold yourselves accountable. And finally, I am asking you to be more transparent in your decision-making about very real choices we still have about the future of our community. Specifically, property taxes and their assessments are not just numbers on a spreadsheet, but core to the identity of Middletown as a whole, as a community rather than as a real estate profit machine. The council is now asking for our taxpayer input again on February 25th. Of course, we applaud the opportunity to participate, but I would like the council to recognize that our input has been solicited 4 times in the last 2 years without any evidence that the full council has heard the content, weighed its value, analyzed and responded to the issues, or accepted the testimony as any more than a tiresome obligation under the bylaws. For us, it is like the movie Groundhog Day, where Bill Murray is caught in an endless repetition of a detestable situation, and nothing will change until there are genuine solutions and changes in approach. Please use the information you already have to inform the population at large as to what's on the table. What are the ideas presented? How many people have spoken? Be transparent and let the information be transparent. Otherwise, this endless request for information on the same topics over and over again is performance government, which is not democratic government. It's Groundhog Day government. To set a larger context and a longer timeline, we should understand that these same issues have been documented since 1789. It was actually earlier, but those records burned up in a fire. There were 2 lists, actually there were 3, regarding assessment and how residents should be taxed and on what. They look remarkably familiar. List A, a particular list or description of each dwelling, which with the outhouses appurtenant thereto and the lot on which the same are erected, not exceeding 2 acres in any case, and exceeding in value the sum of $100. List gives very detailed descriptions of the houses, including dimensions, numbers of stories, numbers of windows, material of construction, as well as identifying both occupants and owners. Often give information like race or widowhood. List B, a particular list or description of all lands, lots, building, and wards, excepting such dwelling houses as with outhouses appurtenant thereto, such as described above. This list gives average acreage for all privately held land and names of owners of adjoining land, when possible, as well as dimensions of barns and commercial dwellings. Council members, not much has changed in the last 231 years. No one loves to pay taxes. No one. No one wants to be taxed out of their house. And no one wants to wake up living in an unrecognizable neighborhood that they used to call home. That was true in 1789, and it's true now. Again, asking us for input and then leaving the information out of sight and out of mind is like living in the circular logic of the Groundhog Day movie. It does not improve or ameliorate the situation one whit, and it does not take seriously the consequences of Middletown's long-time residents. And in case you are wondering about the spirit in which I bring these concerns to you, my family has lived on this island since 1654. Clearly, we are invested in this place. Finally, to bring us back fully into the present day, this behavior and approach is not limited to the council. It permeates the way Middletown is run. We have a comprehensive plan that was expensive and exhaustive. Yet time and time again, the recommendations are either summarily ignored or overturned by one board or another to better serve the needs of another more attractive entity. The best one yet is the new gas station and convenience store in Middletown, located in the watershed. The store is owned as part of a conglomerate based out of state but locally run. In closing, it's time for us all to wake up. Just like Bill Murray, when the council has real information to bring to a smart population of concerned citizens and actually hears what they are saying, we can move forward and put 1789 behind us. Thank you again for your service and your time. A response is appreciated. Bird Jones for the Bushnell Henry Trust. And by the way, I have offered to roll up my sleeves at any time and sit down with anyone on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bird.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to act as a Board of License Commission.
So moved.
Second.
A motion second to act as a Board of License Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Item number 3, application of Sprout and Lentil LLC, DBA Sprout and Lentil, 796 Aquinic Avenue, Unit 3, for Class BL liquor license to be used at the same premise. This is new. Council approval for this item allows for the required advertising for a future public hearing and notification to butters.
Motion to withdraw this application at the request of the applicant.
Second.
Here, a motion second to withdraw. Any conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 4, application of Courtyard Management Corporation, DBA Courtyard Marriott, 9 Commerce Drive, to transfer a BT liquor license to Sonesta International Hotels Corporation, DBA Sonesta Select Newport, Middletown, for use at the same premise. Council approval for this item allows for the required advertising for a future public hearing.
Okay, motion to receive application and advertise for public hearing for hearing to be held on March 15th, 2021.
Second.
Any conversation?
Yes, please.
Councilor Santos?
I haven't changed. I'd like to ask if this format that is being sent to us tonight is going to be continued with all the other licenses that will be presented to us. And at whose request was this new format sent to us? Is it state, town, or whom? It's a waste of paper.
That's how it prints out now with the new license.
It's a new licensing form. That's the way it prints out, Councilor Santos. That's what I'm being told by the clerk.
With all this paper that's going to be wasted? And who requested this? Is it state?
That's just the way it prints out.
Just
It's all same
it's the same
online.
questions. It's just the way that the form prints out.
Thank you.
Councilor Flynn?
Just a clarification. So is the platform being used through the state like we do our permitting? Or is this in-house Middletown, this new printout?
It's a platform provided by the state. It's the same OpenGov that's used for the building permit software.
Okay.
So it is the same.
That's what I thought, just to clarify what Counselor Santos was getting at.
Okay. Any other conversation? Okay. We have a motion, it's been second. All in favor? Aye.
I
Okay, motion to reconvene as the town council.
second,
We have a motion, and second to reconvene as the town council. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Motion to adopt the consent calendar minus items 5 and 6.
second,
We have a motion, and second to adopt minus items number 5 and 6. Any other items that any other council would like to take off?
number 9,
Any other council want to take anything off? Okay, you want to redo that motion, Vice President?
Yeah, I'll amend the motion to add number 9.
Okay. We have a motion. It's seconded
second,
to adopt the consent calendar minus items number 5, 6, and 9. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Okay. Item number 5, approval of the minutes of regular meeting, February 1st, 2021.
Motion to approve said minutes.
second,
Okay, Council Flynn?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. On agenda item number 7, I'd like the minutes to reflect that Chris Bishu agreed to providing 3 affordable housing units on the property.
I don't personally have a problem with that. If that's going to be confirmed by the clerks, that's fine. Vice President?
No, that's exactly what he said when she pushed him a little bit.
Okay. Any further conversation on that? Okay. Let's make a motion in regards to that, okay? So the motion would be, we've seconded that we have number 5, the item open for conversation. Now, we'd like to, want to put an amendment to that, to add what you said, go right ahead. Council Flynn.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the minutes so they reflect that Chris Bishu agreed to providing 3 affordable housing units on the property.
Okay?
Okay.
I'll second that. Do we have any further conversation? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Item number 6, email communication, Karen Day.
Are you gonna do it as amended?
All right, motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
I
Aye.
Item number 6, email communication of Karen Day, Citizens Memorial Committee, proposal for a memorial tree in Paul Lamont's memory, Valley Park, approved by the Citizens Memorial Committee.
Motion to receive said email communication and approve said proposal.
second,
Okay, it's been seconded. Any conversation?
Quick,
Council Flynn.
just a quick
Fine.
question. So this is this approval of this item is pre-approval for funding by the town for the plaque and the tree once the species decided on. Is that true? Like this is an approval to fund this? It's not just an approval to, for the plaque and tree to be there. We're actually funding this. Did I understand that correctly?
Mr. Brown? I saw it as a request. Is it a request also for us to fund it?
It appears as if the committee is funding it from their funds.
That's what I thought. I thought it was a request to do it, but I didn't see a request to fund it. Unless somebody saw something that I didn't.
Well, that was my question. So they just state the cost of the plaque and the cost of the tree. And I just didn't know why we would need to know that. I'm not speaking in opposition or in support. I'm just inquiring, if that's what part of that this is.
Okay. Mr. Brown, anything additional to that? Vice President, you want to comment?
I do. It says that the tree commission will assume the cost.
Ah, okay.
It does say that.
All right.
It says it where you see the picture of the plaque in that first
Yep.
paragraph up top, the third bullet item.
Yes.
It says that the cost will be determined when the family selects the species of the tree commission will give
Assume
them a
the
list, and
cost.
which the selectmen, the tree commission will assume the cost.
Thank you. Yep.
You're welcome.
My apologies.
Councilor
No worries.
Santos?
In the past, the memorial committee, regardless of who was the chairman, the request would always be brought to the committee, and then the committee would present it to the council for approval.
Thank you, Councilor Santos. Vice President?
Bob, I'd just like to say a couple of words about this request. I think it's fantastic. Paul Amon devoted 20 years of his life to the beautification of Middletown, with tree plantings all over town. I tell you, I think it's a great way to honor Mr. Lamont. And if you knew Mr. Lamont, I know some of us here graduated with a few of his, went to school with a few of his children, and he lived behind the farm where we grew up on Porter. He was just a nicest man, just a reasonable guy. And he did a lot for the town of Middletown as far as beautification. And I think it's a great tribute to him and his family.
I certainly agree. Like you, I also spent some time with Paul, and he was a hard charger. He was dedicated to the town of Middletown. I'll never forget, one day he called me up. He said, "Bob, you have any ideas? What kind of trees should we plant down the valley?" I said, "Do you have any money trees, Paul?" He said, after that, he used to always call me up. He told me, he said, as soon as I found where they sold them, he wanted to know so he could go buy one. But great guy, dedicated Middletowner. His heart was certainly in the right place for the town of Middletown. So, all right. So we have a motion. It's been seconded to receive the email communication and to approve this proposal. Any further conversation? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Item number 9. Communication of the tax assessor, cancellation of tax for certain Middletown residents.
Motion to receive said communication.
Second,
Okay, motion has been seconded. Councilor Santos?
is this going to be, thank you, Mr. President, is this going to be a new format from the tax assessor's office with all this paperwork again? Giving all the information. If someone wants the information, they can go through Mr. Brown, our tax assessor, and speak to our tax assessor. We don't have to produce all this information on abatement. You can talk to Mr. Brown, get permission to talk to tax assessor, and get your information. This is just another waste of paper.
Councilor Flynn?
I was actually surprised. I hadn't seen these forms either, Councilor Santos. You would probably be more familiar with them than I am, having worked in that realm. But we used to get a cover memo from the tax assessor if there were unexplained or unusual circumstances that would be proactive to questions that might come in. So I think this is instead of that. I don't know the reason why, but I can figure it out based on what he sent, the raw data.
I would suspect that it was done in the sense that full documentation as much as they could supply. I'm not sure, but we can discuss that, and I certainly agree that it's a lot of wasted paperwork. But anybody that wants it is certainly also available too. So. Okay. Any other comment, Councilor Santos?
No, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to, it's been seconded to receive the said communication. Any further conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, item number 11,
Mr. President?
Councilor Toronto.
Yes, I have a quick question. The first of each month, we are supposed to have a section on here for project updates. I don't see that on the docket.
It'll be on the next docket. I talked to Mr. Brown about this. It'll be on the next docket. He just got backed up in the little things, but he'll get it on the next docket for us.
Okay, and I know we've been, he's given us a great detailed document. Thank you, Sean, about the departments and things. I think that's great. I know we got a limited amount of time to talk, and that document would take hours to go through. If we could have that project update based on the priorities that we set, that, a little update on the senior housing, a little update on, the major projects that are going on. We're not looking for minute data. We can get that if we need it, but again, that just goes back to getting an update on our, top 5 priorities. Just a quick update, that's all.
Okay.
We did say it would be the first meeting of each month, so.
Mr. Brown?
So the way that the policy or procedure that you adopted works is the council is supposed to communicate which projects they'd like updates on. And I haven't received any to date since you've adopted the policy. So without any feedback, we've basically generated the document to be as transparent as possible. So if the council wants to give me a list of projects to update on, so it's more streamlined, I'd be more than happy to accommodate that, since that was your original goal.
Hey, Councilor Toronto?
So I'm not sure if we can, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking to me.
No, Councilor
Sorry.
Toronto, did you follow up with that?
Oh, no, I mean, again, Sean, thank you for the document. I mean, it's a lot of good detail in each of the departments. I know it's a good read. I forwarded to a couple of residents who have asked for it, and they really appreciate the insight into the projects that are going on. I'm probably going to take a look at the rules of the council in regards to this area, make a few changes, just so it is a little bit more clear on what we want to get accomplished here. And I'll send in a list. I mean, I think it's just the top 5 that we all voted on in regards to what our top priorities are. So I'll send a list in. Thanks.
Councilor Flynn?
Well, I was just going to suggest to take off on Councilor Toronto's, not sure if we can talk about this because of the docket, but it certainly should be the top 5 every month standing order. And then if there's extras, the councilors can write in. That would be my suggestion.
Okay. Vice President?
I was just gonna say, I mean, we gotta stick to the agenda, guys. We only have so much time tonight. I don't see this on the agenda. I only took a few minutes, but we've got to get out of here at a reasonable time tonight because of the election tomorrow. So we've got to stick to the agenda.
Okay. Councilor Toronto?
Just real quick, Paul, I agree. It's just not on here at all. I mean, there used to be.
I agree, but that
was just the
can
conversation.
be taken offline. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
All right, ordinances, item number 11, public hearing advertised. An ordinance of the town of Middletown. This is the first reading. An ordinance and amendment to the town code of the town of Middletown, Title 15, Land Use, Chapter 152 Zoning Code, is amended by amending and definition of building height in section 400, entitled Definitions, and adding a new subsection E to section 704, entitled Height and Yard Modifications. Planning Board recommendation is on file.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Before we take any questions from anybody, we have one person I know that wants to ask questions. I'm going to ask the solicitor to make everybody privy to the reason why this docket item is on here and the basis for it.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the main purpose of this amendment is to bring the definition of building height in our zoning code into line with changes that were made in the definition of building height under the State Zoning Enabling Act. Several years back, the state made changes to the Zoning Enabling Act to come up with a uniform definition of building height that would apply statewide. It has been modified several times over the past few years. This ordinance amendment would do two things. It would bring our ordinance into line with the most recent amendment under state law, which we are required to do. And as a practical matter, even if we didn't change this, it's the definition of state law of building height that would apply in any event. But obviously, we want to make sure that our ordinances are comply with state law. Number two, the most recent iterations of the building height definition under state law also provide that for buildings that are in certain flood hazard areas where the buildings have to be built up above the base flood elevation, that the height would be measured differently, and it would potentially allow those buildings to be taller than other buildings would otherwise be allowed to be. Back in 2019, the town enacted an amendment to the zoning code in section 704E that provided that to the extent that there were buildings in flood areas shown on the FEMA flood maps, that the allowable height of those buildings would be reduced by 8 feet. The intent being that we didn't want to have buildings in flood zones tower over all the other buildings in the area or in town. And so this proposed amendment also makes a corresponding amendment to that section of the zoning code, once again, to make sure that it's not only buildings that are in the flood zone per the FEMA maps, but also in flood hazard areas per the CRMC maps, which is how the state law has changed. So once again, just trying to make sure that we are consistent with state law. And then secondly, amending the provision that was adopted in 2019 that ensures that we don't have excess height of buildings in all the flood hazard areas.
Any questions? Do any councilors have any questions of the solicitor before we open it up to the public? Vice President.
Well, I know behind me, they're building a new house and it's a monster. And it was a flood. There was some water issues there. And this thing they're just starting to put on the second floor and it's towering over everybody. So I would encourage somebody to take a look at it to make sure it conforms to, Peter, exactly what you're talking about, built in the flood.
Okay. Any other council? Council Santos?
Isn't this a little bit too late?
No, this is, there was a recent change in the state law definition. And so now we're following up on that. The planning board has proposed this change to keep us current with the current state law.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Wolanski, I understand you want to say something. I don't see you, but that's what I'm hearing. Ron?
Hi there, can you hear me?
We can hear you now, Ron.
Great, thank you. Good evening. I just wanted to,
For those of you at home, Ron's our,
sorry, yeah.
go ahead. Introduce yourself, Ron.
Ron Wolanski, Town Planner. I just wanted to pick up on Peter's description, and I think perhaps in the ordinance draft, there may be a typographical error because as Peter described back in 2019, we did add that new subsection E to section 704. So that's been enacted, and that's relative to, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. But that subsection E was already adopted, and I don't believe that this amendment actually touches that section at all. And Peter, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was just a typographical error in the drafting of this particular ordinance. So the ordinance tonight is strictly to revise the definition to be consistent with the state statute and how the measurements are done in relation to the properties in the floodplain. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Thank you.
Councilor Toronto?
If I remember right, they were going to be able to not account the first 7 or 8 feet towards the height restriction in the area is what it was. And we said, no, we didn't want that. So they basically got to stay within what the actual current zoning is in regards to their heights.
That I think might have been the general idea, was not to have excessively tall buildings in the flood zone. We do have to follow the definition of height under the state law, but what the council did was adopt an amendment that lowered the allowable height of buildings in those flood hazard areas. So there was a potential increase in height here and a potential lowering of height in a separate section to try to keep things in line.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Flynn?
And this, as I'm looking at it properly, is just in paragraph or section 400 of the zoning code, which is simply definitions. And this is really very administrative. Do I get that right, Mr. Solicitor?
Very pro forma. You are absolutely correct.
Any other council? Okay. We have David Rushlow. David Rushlow.
Can you hear me?
We can. Dave, name and address, please.
David Rushlow, 32 Ellery Avenue, Middletown, Rhode Island. I'd like to say good evening, Mr. President, but at this time I decline to speak. But thank you for the opportunity. You gave me a lot of information that I needed. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Rushlow.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, Vice President, because I don't have full disclosure to the screens down there, is there anyone else that's public that would like to ask any questions?
No, Karen's saying no.
All right.
Okay, the public hearing will remain open. So a motion to receive said ordinance on its first reading.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion second to receive on its first reading. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Need to make a decision here, whether we're gonna start item 12 or Vice President?
No, go ahead, Bob, because I was just gonna talk about, it's about 18 minutes of 8.
Mhm.
So,
I don't think we'd be doing the public hearing any just by opening this public hearing now. We have the clerks here. They have to be back early in the morning. Everybody knew that going into this, so unless somebody has a reason why not to, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn for tonight. Vice President?
well, I mean, there's somebody that wants to speak on this, so we still have 15 minutes, 18 minutes.
Okay. All right, public hearing is advertised. An ordinance of the town of Middletown, it's the first reading. An ordinance of amendment to the town code of the town of Middletown, Title 15 Land Use, Chapter 152 Zoning Code is amended by amending sections 27A04B, 27A04C, and 27A07E of Article 27A Mixed Use. Development projects.
Motion open.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I was gonna make a motion.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna go ahead. Motion to open the public hearing.
Second,
Yeah, motion second, to open the
Sorry,
public hearing.
sorry for
All in
jumping.
favor?
aye.
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 I know we have one person that wants to speak, Lawrence Frank. Lawrence?
Lawrence Frank, 8 O'Donnell Road, Middletown. I would like to know why the hours of the operation limits have been removed, and what areas of the town did the planning board consider when it made these recommendations? It seems to me that mixed-use projects could include affordable housing built above commercial enterprises. If you have 24-hour operations and the noise and disruptions associated with that, why would anyone want to live in that environment? I'd like to really know why the hours were limited. Thank you.
Mr. Wolanski, do you have any insight to that? I'm not putting you on the spot, but do you have any
Sure.
insight?
Yeah, so there are several proposed amendments to the mixed use ordinance that the planning board considered. And this goes back about 1.5 years now that this discussion happened. So there was a review of the uses, prohibited uses in the ordinance for mixed-use developments, and some modifications to those uses are being proposed, including to allow for government and educational types of uses in mixed-use developments, allowing for supermarkets in mixed-use developments, and also allowing for pool parlors in mixed-use developments. Regarding hours of operation, under the current ordinance, there is a limitation in limited business that, and this is for mixed-use developments only, that properties with commercial and residential uses, the commercial must cease operations at 8 p.m. The hours of operation allowed would be 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And in general business districts, the hours of operation would be allowed 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. The planning board felt that those restrictions were onerous and did not facilitate having developers use the mixed-use ordinance as intended. You may recall that the goal was to have mixed-use development as an alternative to straight commercial development in hopes of getting residential multifamily uses developed in conjunction with appropriate commercial development. I'm trying to speak, I guess, for the planning board, and there may be planning board members on the line that might want to chime in, but the impression I got is that the planning board wished to recognize that there are limitations in the types of uses that are going to be allowed in mixed-use developments, but they did not want to overly burden the developer or the businesses in those developments with these hours of operation. And again, there's no requirement that people, developers, use the mixed-use ordinance. It's really a voluntary ordinance, but something the town wants folks to take advantage of, and having those limitations on the hours was seen as being inhibiting the use of the ordinance.
Does that help you answer your question, Mr. Frank?
I understand his answer, but what I don't understand is, or what bothers me is that it's going to limit the availability or the option of using these spaces above commercial properties for housing. Because if this is going to be 24-hour-a-day operations, I'm not sure many people want to live in that type of environment.
Okay. Councilor Flynn?
Thank you. I'm not sure if I heard a contradiction from our planner to what I'm looking at here. Ron, you stated that there are some limits, but the lines that have the hours limits, unless they're duplicated someplace else, are actually stricken as if they're going to be removed from the ordinance.
That's right. So the hours of operation limitations are proposed to be removed. What I was saying is there are restrictions in the types of uses that can occur in mixed-use developments. Those restrictions continue, which is in the draft ordinance. You can see there's a pretty extensive list of the types of uses that are prohibited. So again, not to put my words in the planning board's mouth, but I think the feeling was that with those restrictions of the types of uses that can occur in a mixed-use development, the hours of operation limitation wasn't as important.
Mr. Solicitor?
Yeah, and just to follow up on Ron's comment, I think that the board also felt that, a developer coming in doing a mixed development is going to try to come up with an appropriate mix of uses. It doesn't make sense for a developer to include residential housing in a mixed-use development and then putting commercial uses that are inconsistent with that, because that's going to be an unsuccessful development. And the developer doing a mixed-use development is going to want both ends of that development to be successful. So that was one idea that went into that. And then the other idea is to try to make this mixed-use ordinance more attractive to developers, because Ron can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know that we've had anybody take advantage of it since it was adopted.
Chris Bisho will be the first one if that goes forward.
Counselor Toronto, did you have your hand up? Or was that Counselor Flynn? Counselor Flynn?
Yes, I did.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I didn't want to jump because I know Paul's also had his hand up, but I also wanted to ask, so the last time that this was heard and I found meeting minutes was from October 7th, 2019. Is that true, Ron, that that we approved having a public hearing back then, and because of COVID, perhaps it got forwarded, and this is the first time it's actually coming to a public hearing on the ordinance change?
That's correct. This is the first public
So-
hearing, and you're exactly right. By the time the recommendation got to the town council, you run into the holidays and then COVID hit, and here we are.
Okay, so, because of the time considerations, I'm going to reserve my conversation to the second reading, and, everyone can go glance at it if they want to for October 7th, 2019. I would just throw in there, since I really didn't realize the time limits were going to be totally stricken, that when I was on the planning board, when this ordinance was put together, it was vetted extraordinarily. And you say that, the developers will make it work, but then of course you wonder what kind of clientele they're going to make it work for with the changes. So I'll just leave it at that for the second hearing.
Okay, thank you. Vice President?
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. President. So I got to agree with Mr. Frank. I mean, I can't understand why it would be opened up to a certain or unlimited time, regardless of what the uses are. And I got to tell you, I understand that we need potential developers to make things happen but do we? Because I got to tell you, I'm really getting tired of making things attractive for developers and not as attractive for our residents or for our potential residents. So I get the mixed use. I get, we're trying to create a balance here. I get all that. But I'm just tired of hearing that we got to make it more attractive for developers. Yeah, so they take the money, they're going, and we got to look at it. So just my own observation.
Counselor Toronto?
Yeah, I just had a question with Ron said. He said something about Chris moving forward. If he moves forward with this, what's he referring to?
This is the development on the corner of Forest Avenue and East Main that you learned about recently, where he's requesting or expected to submit an application to request development of that property for mixed use, mixed residential and office space.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I understand, Mr. Frank, you want to make another comment?
Thank you, Mr. Rodericks and Ms. Flynn resolved what I was concerned about.
Okay. Is there, Mr. Vice President, do you or the clerk downstairs see anyone else that'd like to speak?
No, Karen says no.
Okay.
Comment?
Counselor Flynn?
I just want to clarify to Counselor Toronto and the public what our town planner was saying. And Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's now going in front of the planning board, Dennis. So Mr. Bishu is still waiting for an approval.
We don't yet have an application, actually, so we're waiting
Okay.
for the application.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. There's no one else, Mr. Vice President?
No. So the public hearing will remain open, and I would make a motion to receive the ordinance on its first reading.
Second,
Okay. Have a motion to receive said ordinance as first reading. Public hearing will remain open. Any further conversation? The second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. It's 5 minutes of 8. I guess we are looking to adjourn.
Yes. Counselor Flynn?
I honestly think we could get through at least another 3. I think these next 3 are very fast,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
We'll give it a chop, but I'm going to tell you, Counselor Flynn.
I know, 8 o'clock.
I'm not going to go long. I'm thinking of the clerk. I gave them my word that I'd get him out of here. number 13 and 14 are gonna be relatively real easy because
Right.
I'm gonna make a motion, I'll do it right now, to expedite it. To continue item number 13 and 14 until after the special meeting regarding short-term rentals. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item number 15, memorandum from myself. It's a one-time COVID relief check waiver for our seniors. Our seniors are, oh,
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
you got me really going, Councilor Flynn.
Keep it
Motion to
moving.
receive? Okay. I put this on the docket. Our seniors are now submitting their property tax exemptions. Their tax exemption applications, and the tax assessor's office is processing them. Many of them received COVID relief checks last year, which inflates their annual income that they are reporting, which could negatively impact their exemption amount that they received from the town this year. And I'm asking you to join me in authorizing the town assessor to disregard this one-time COVID relief check for our seniors that they received last year when calculating their exemption eligibility. And I request your support in this. I think it's fair for our seniors. They got a little windfall. And I don't think it's right that they lose an exemption over a little bit of a windfall. My feeling on it. And I will make that motion. Is it seconded? And then I'll open it up for conversation.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Okay, conversation. Councilor Flynn.
I would just throw out there that they did not ask for this money, and, I have no problem ignoring it for the purposes of the tax assessor's job.
Okay, does anybody have any further conversations with regards to this? Okay, so the motion's there, it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And we had we received the memorandum that was received. It was seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Item number 16,
Aye.
memorandum of Councilor Flynn, planning board considerations.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Councilor Flynn.
Let's see. Well, outside the building applications, the planning board has about a 15 count project of zoning things to do that, like in marijuana, airport, solar, water. I was on the planning board for 2 years. I know how busy they are. The suggestion of this docket item is a strategy to address the backlog, get more accomplished, to set Middletown up to move forward. As stated in the cover memo, the planning board priorities can be categorized into application review and zoning. Recently, the council received 5 planning board applications for 2 planning board vacancies. With the volunteer interest, I was thinking maybe an ad hoc ordinance board could be created to address the zoning issues while planning board reviews the application issues. That would give us 2 distinct workload lists to prioritize, and then the council would know that the top of each list is getting worked on simultaneously, because these are the issues that protect Middletown and Middletown residents. That's Mr. President.
Conversation. Any councilors want to weigh in on that? Councilor Santos.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to ask anyone who wants to answer, how many items on the planning board docket are continued to some other meeting other than the current meeting they're going to have coming up?
I don't have the answer personally for that.
I think Ron,
No, go ahead.
I believe that Ron wrote in a memo that the planning board has a steady stream of subdivision and development applications and is currently scheduling many meetings on numerous issues, including the water traffic build out and zoning, for marijuana, solar energy, and airport overlay. And so they have that steady stream. Apparently they're busy on both fronts, Mrs. Santos. I don't have the exact numbers, but that was from a memo from our town planner.
Council Santos.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is my understanding many of those items that were going to be referred to the planning board have been continued to another meeting. We don't need to establish another committee to oversee the planning board.
Oh,
I think we have enough, excuse me?
my apologies.
I think we have enough committees that report back to the council. We don't need any more ad hoc committees to report back to the council or to the planning board.
Okay, Council Flynn.
I see our town planner is still on. I don't know if he would like to weigh in on this.
Hi there again. The only thing I could add to answer Mr. Santos's question is that we do have on the upcoming docket a few items that will likely be continued again. And those items are items where the applicants have still yet to supply the information required to allow the planning board to complete its review. So I just wanted to let you know that there are definitely items, and it's really on every docket we end up with items being continued, most often because the planning board is awaiting additional information.
But per se, Ron, nothing to do with us.
That particular issue,
Our mechanism for handling this.
they
Or
continue.
Are there delays because of the way we handle these?
In most cases, not. Occasionally, there's an issue where we are not able to, for example, schedule a technical review committee meeting for one reason or another. But I can tell you that over the past several months, when we've had several continuances, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, every one of those is due to an applicant not supplying the information that's been requested.
Okay. Council Flynn, very quick. We already went past 8 o'clock.
Yeah, my apologies. So Ron, I guess I would ask you, because I know that even with the continuances, the dockets are still very full. Is that true?
That is true. So yes, we still have full meetings, even though several items end up being continued.
I guess that was my point. I know that they're working many meetings and many meetings because they have public hearings on each separate zoning issue. And so their schedule is very full. So it's entirely, certainly up to the council. It was just an idea.
I think it's a good idea. Let's look into it some more. I don't want to put this to a vote tonight myself. I don't want to rush this, but I do want to rush the end of this meeting.
Understood.
I don't like giving my word to people not coming through with it, okay? So.
Would we
item number
continue?
16 Yes, item number 16. We had a motion with a second to receive the memorandum. All in favor of receiving? Aye.
Aye.
Motion to continue this to our next council meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Clarence.